Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Before we get into today's show, please do me a small favour. Make sure to drop a like on today's video and be sure to subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner. We're just about to hit 41,200 subscribers. So anybody who's watching today who isn't subscribed, make sure you do that and let's make sure we reach the next milestone. Right, the question I've got for you this morning is about the Manchester United versus Newcastle United game today. I think it's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff. I want to know your score predictions. Get in the comment section. Let me know your score predictions. How are you feeling for this game? Are you confident? Are you nervous? Are you worried? Let me know. I mean, for Manchester United, as we all know, it doesn't really mean that much. Newcastle, it's a huge game for them. Reason being, they are currently sat in 7th place. If they were to win today, they'd go up to 4th. If they win against Manchester United today, they will go up to 4th place. And obviously, they're a team who are dying for Champions League football, you know? I'm not very confident going into this game. Newcastle have been pretty decent this season. Isak's on fire. Bruno Guimaraes. Their midfield is just levels above us, isn't it? Joel Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, and Sandro Tonali. Every single one of those players would get an arm midfield, I think. Every one of them. So I'm not really holding out too much hope. If you look at the Newcastle team versus our team, right? And you did a combined 11. Where's their team? Let's have a look. So they're on form as well. They've won their last 4 games in a row. Have a look at the Newcastle team. Nick Pope, I'd take over Onana. Trippier, I'd take over Dalot. Livramento, would I take over? Livramento's been decent this season, maybe. The whole of their midfield I would take. Not sure about their defenders. I don't know if I'd take them. I'd definitely take Isak. I'd definitely take Harvey Barnes. And I'd definitely take Murphy. And then you go to their bench as well. On their bench, they have people like, even Callum Wilson. I reckon he'd get in our team now. Dubravka would probably get in our team. So, yeah, they've recruited well. It's an example of a team who had lots of money and they spent the money wisely. Obviously, there's never any guarantees in football. There's always a risk that you buy a player and it doesn't work and all the rest of it. I get all of that. But, fair play to Newcastle. They've done incredibly well. And I'm not very confident going into this game at all. Score predictions-wise, I imagine we'll probably just park the bus, which I have no problem with at all. Obviously, we have this huge game on Thursday. Massive match that we need to win. Anything other than I don't know, will a loss be a massive confidence knock? Not really, I don't think. Like, is anyone expecting us to beat Newcastle? This is a good question as well. Joseph says, do you think Bayindir will play? That's probably the biggest talking point of this game. It's not really the end result. It's whether Onana is going to be dropped. And for me, Onana has to be dropped. There's no doubt about it. Like, Andre Onana should definitely be dropped for this game. 100%. But he should also be dropped for the game against Lyon on Thursday. You know? To this point, Altay Bayindir has had lots of opportunities in the Europa League. But for some reason, he didn't play against Lyon. I don't really understand why. I feel for the guy. You know, he's barely played. And the jury's still out on whether Andre Onana is good enough. The jury is still out whether Altay Bayindir is good enough. But I think we can all agree that Onana is definitely not good enough, you know? I'm not convinced that Altay Bayindir is the answer in the long run, realistically. But I think in the short term, he definitely deserves an opportunity. He joined from Fenerbahce, wasn't it? 2 years ago. And I would say he's probably only played 5 times, maybe not even that. How many times has Altay Bayindir started for Manchester United? I know he played against Arsenal once. He played against Newport in was it the League Cup? Once. The point being, he's barely played football for Manchester United, if at all, and he does deserve an opportunity. You know, when he left Turkey, he was the Turkish national team goalkeeper. I don't think he is anymore. He was starting every week for Fenerbahce, and now he is lucky to get 1 or maybe 2 games a season, which is a shame for the guy. But that does happen sometimes. But anyway, my score prediction: I think it will either be like a 1-1, like a boring, we park the bus and we luckily get a draw, or Newcastle might completely batter us. So I'm going to go for two options here. I'm going to say either it's going to be like 4-0 to Newcastle, or it will be 1-1. So, and I know that's kind of sitting on the fence, but in short, I don't think Manchester United are going to win. And I think it's either going to be really tight, we'll park the bus and scrape a draw, or Newcastle will just completely destroy us. And I don't know which way it will go yet, so we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens with that one. But yeah, keep getting your score predictions in the chat. Let me know what you think. Very interested to see what you guys all have to say. But anyway, let's move on from that and let's talk about Ryan Cherki, shall we? So this is a player that I really, really like, Ryan Cherki. Obviously, he plays for Lyon. Obviously, we're playing Lyon on Thursday. 21 years of age. He's got 11 goals and assists in the Europa League this season in 11 games. So he's either assisted or scored every single game in the Europa League this season, which is absolutely incredible. And the story this morning is suggesting that apparently Manchester United are the favourites to sign him in the summer. He's available for around 21 million. Now, I don't know why that is. Is there a release clause? Let's have a look. That seems really cheap to me. Okay, there you go. So apparently Fabrizio said that there's a release clause of around 25 million euros in Ryan Cherki's contract, which is about 21 million pounds, and that's available in the summer. This is from Fabrizio. He has a release clause, and apparently Manchester United and Tottenham are two of the clubs that are available. Now, the only issue with these types of release clauses, to my understanding, usually when there's a release clause like this, you have to pay the full transfer fee up front. And it's whether Manchester United have the resources to do that. So just to kind of give you a bit of a clarity. So say we sign, I don't know, I can't think of an example. Say we go and sign this. Let me just do an extreme example here, okay? Just to kind of give you a bit of a reference point on how difficult the deal will be to do. So 25 million isn't very much, agreed? But to pay 25 million in one go is pretty difficult. Because what clubs do is they spread the fees out over a long period. So say we were to go and sign, let's think of an example. Let's say we went and signed Isak from Newcastle, right? Newcastle say we want 100 million for Isak. And we say, yep, no problem, we'll pay the 100 million. That 100 million would be spread usually across 5 years, sometimes even longer. So we'd actually only have to pay Newcastle 20 million this year. Does that make sense? Whereas if we were to go and sign Ryan Cherki, we would have to give them the full 25 million upfront immediately on the point of agreeing the deal because of this release clause. Now, what that means is, it doesn't mean that we won't be able to get him. It just means that the only way around that, the same thing happened with Joshua Zirkzee, right? The only way around that would be to say, we don't have 25 million to give you now. We'll give you 40 million and we'll do 8 million a year for the next 5 years. Do you see the difference there? So instead of giving them 25 million up front, you say, we'll pay you more money, but we'll give it to you over 5 years and we'll give you more than what the release clause is. So that's probably more likely as to what will happen, because the likelihood of any club giving them 25 million in cash in one window is quite small, because that's the equivalent of, let me just work it out in my head, that's the equivalent of signing 125 million pounds worth of players, usually, because obviously you spread it over 5 years. So if you were to sign 125 million pounds worth of players this summer who didn't have release clauses, you would only actually be spending 25 million this summer. Does that make sense? And then there'd be 25 next summer, 25 the year after, 25, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, 25 million upfront cash is the equivalent of 125 over a 5-year period. So that kind of gives you a bit of a reference point. You know, for 125 million, you could probably get yourself Liam Delap, Edison, and maybe a Frimpong, realistically. So I reckon what will really happen here is lots of clubs will enter the mix. Tottenham are obviously interested. Manchester United are obviously interested. And, you know, we'll go to them and say, we'll give you 40 million, but we'll give you 8 million a season for the next 5 years, sorry. And exactly the same thing happened with Joshua Zirkzee. Does anybody remember in the summer, Joshua Zirkzee had a release clause of like 30 million? But obviously we had to pay that full 30 million up front. So instead of paying the full 30 million, Manchester United went to Bologna and said, we'll give you 40 million, but we'll spread it over a longer period of time, which effectively then means that they don't have to outlay as much money in one window. So it does make sense. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense realistically to do it in that way. And we'll just have to see whether Manchester United do structure the deal, you know, in that way that I've described, or whether they do go in and say, you know what, we'll give you the full 25 up front. I just can't see it. I just don't think it's likely. The same thing happened with... Who was it? The same thing happened with... What's his name? My brain's gone. The same thing happened with Lenny Yoro. You know, we paid way over what the asking price was for Lenny Yoro, but obviously we said to them, we'll give you the money over a 5-year period. So although it was such a big amount of money, Manchester United saw it as, well, we're only actually paying 10 million a season for him or whatever, you know? So, yeah. Let me know what you think about that. Do you think Ryan Cherki is the answer? Or do you think we should be looking at someone else? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I really like him. I think he fits the age profile. I think his stats are absolutely incredible, and I think we do need more attacking players in our team, and he is definitely an attacking player. So I would like to see Ryan Cherki at Manchester United, and I hope that Manchester United can get this deal done, because I think, you know, at the end of the day, we're desperately crying out for more exciting, creative players in that attacking area, because at the moment, we just completely rely on Bruno Fernandes, and as great as Bruno Fernandes is, we need to have some other options. Now, obviously, I know that Mason Mount is back from injury, and I think Mason Mount, when he's fully fit and in form, is a decent player to have in the squad. Yes, it was a bad signing. Yes, we overpaid. Yes, he's injured all the time. I get all of the criticism of Mason Mount, but at the same time, if you look at it from the other perspective, a fully fit Mason Mount who's in form is definitely an asset for this team, you know? But the big question is, how long will he stay fit for? When's he ever going to reach the form that he was at Chelsea? Will he ever reach the form that he was at Chelsea? You know, these are all the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And realistically, as upsetting as it is, the likelihood is we probably will never see the Mason Mount that we saw at Chelsea who helped them win the Champions League. I don't think. We will never see that in a Manchester United shirt. So as a result of that, we do have to strengthen those attacking areas, because we can't be relying on an injury-prone Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes as our only kind of creative options. You know, there isn't anyone else. There's Kobbie Mainoo, but is he best as a number 8, a number 6, a number 10? We don't really know where Kobbie Mainoo's best position is yet. There is Joshua Zirkzee, who I think is definitely growing into the team, and I think is a good player to have around the squad, don't get me wrong. But other than that, there's not really anybody. You know, Garnacho doesn't suit playing as a central attacking midfielder. He doesn't. He's a wide player. And the formation doesn't really suit Garnacho, in my opinion, because he can't play as a wing-back because he doesn't defend. And I just don't think he has the football IQ to play as a central attacking midfielder. You know, he just doesn't, simply. And then, you know, when we look at some of the other players that we have in and around the squad, people like Jadon Sancho, people like Marcus Rashford, Anthony, all these players that have question marks over their future, none of them are central attacking midfielders. They're all wide players, and none of them suit the system either. So Ineos really, really need to clean up house this summer. They need to get rid of players and bring in specialist players in each of those positions who are central attacking midfielders or who are wing backs. You know, we need people to fill those roles. But let me know what you think about all of that. Let me have a little look in the chat. Let me have a little sip of my tea. Al says that Mason Mount isn't a creative player. I'm not sure if I agree with you, mate, but fair enough. I feel like Mason Mount is a creative player, definitely. But as I said, the likelihood of us seeing Mason Mount, the Mason Mount that we saw at Chelsea, in a Manchester United shirt, I think is very, very small. Because in reality, we'll probably be sat here at 6 o'clock this evening, and Mason Mount will have gone off injured and will be out again for the rest of the season. You know, that's probably the reality that we will face here. So, yeah, we definitely can't rely on Mason Mount. There'll be people who are saying, oh, we should sell him. I mean, that's not going to happen either. No one's going to buy Mason Mount. You know, I think he's on 250 grand a week. Manchester United would need to sell him for probably in excess of 35 million just to break even on the amortization on that deal. So yeah, the likelihood of us selling Mason Mount, I think, is pretty much zero. So we just have to get behind him. We have to hope he comes good. Will it happen? Probably not, but let's try and back our players. Right, let's move on from that though, and let's talk about Rasmus Hojlund, because the news this morning is suggesting that apparently Juventus and other Serie A clubs have been alerted to the availability of Rasmus Hojlund. He's available for around £50 million, which I think is ridiculous. No one's going to pay £50 million for him. You'd be lucky, I think, to get... I need to think about this carefully. I think somewhere around 30 to 40 million pounds would be like... 30 is probably realistic. 40, I think, would be like good for Manchester United. We're never going to get back the money that we spent on Rasmus Hojlund, realistically. He is still young. He does still have potential. And the likelihood is he'll probably go to a Juventus. And in 2 or 3 years, he'll probably be one of the best strikers in the Serie A, I think. Because it's a lesser league. There obviously is pressure at Juventus. But the pressure at Manchester United is like nothing you can ever imagine. Especially, when you're a player, Rasmus Hojlund, who has kind of been thrown under the bus a little bit, by the Glazers, by Ineos, in the sense that he should never have been starting every single game for Manchester United. We should have had an experienced striker for him to kind of learn off and him to be the understudy. Like, he should only really be starting to get game time now, I think. He should have joined Manchester United, maybe gone off on loan for a little bit, come back into the team, played 20 minutes here and there. Like, that should have been his development path. But instead, it was like, here's Rasmus Hojlund. Sky Sports start comparing him to Haaland because they're both from Scandinavia and they've both got kind of similar sounding names. Let's compare them to, Hojlund's a flop. Haaland, like that was the narrative. And very, very quickly into his career at Manchester United, like, people were already like, he's a flop. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's good enough, but at the same time, I don't think, like, it's 100% fair to be like, this is all his fault. I don't agree with that. I think he has had a hard time in his development at Manchester United, and we haven't really given him a fair chance, really. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're here to score goals for Manchester United, and he scored 1 goal in 20 games. So there's not really much more you can add to that, is there? If you score 1 goal in 20 games as a striker for Manchester United, people are probably going to be questioning whether you're good enough, So, yeah. And I mean, he's even said himself, he knows that his form's not been good enough. So, yeah. But, right, let's move on from that. What else have we got to talk about today? Right, we're going to talk a little bit about... We're going to talk about Onana and Casemiro. So apparently Manchester United are going to try and sell both of these players this summer, with Saudi clubs circling for their signature, apparently. That sounds great. I'd love to see both of those players moved on. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to say about Onana and Casemiro, is there? They both need to go. It's as simple as that. And apparently Saudi clubs are the team, is the potential destination for both of them. I mean, Casemiro to Saudi makes so much sense. Onana, I feel like, might be a little bit more difficult because he is a little bit younger. But then at the same time, if Onana goes to Saudi Arabia, he's not going to lose his place in the Cameroonian national team, is he? So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. I hope everyone has an amazing Sunday. Thank you very much for watching today. Please don't forget to drop a like, comment, subscribe. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll speak to you all on the next one. Bye for now.